at every level, people are kind of testing to see, do you know your stuff? Do you have kind of the capacity? Do you even have the humility to ask questions? Because you don't know what you're doing. Because there are some people that try to do the opposite, where they feel like they have everything under control, and then it all just blows up because they tried to take on too much. And so I think you're right. This is an industry that constantly will kind of test your worth and your knowledge base, and there needs to be a balance of personality traits and characteristics that help you be successful in those capacities.
Hi everybody, Gavin Coyle, I'm the Gaffer, and we're back with a great guest. His name is Guerra, and what I want you to think about is how we can attract other skill sets into construction that can add a different dimension in terms of maybe they're coming from a completely different academic background or different skill set, but how do they intertwine into construction in such a way that can make a positive impact for the industry, either locally, internationally, globally. And because of the shortage of skill sets in construction, this is something I feel passionate about, that we need to start thinking more broadly about how we can attract other skills and other careers into construction, and then how do we mold those people into such a way that we can utilize their skill set, but at the same time add value to the construction industry. And Chris is one of those lighting beacons that I see that has come from a completely different background, but the skill set you will see has a major upsides for construction. Chris, I'm delighted to have you on the show, and we're really looking forward to seeing what is it that is in your background that can add more value to the construction industry. How are you today?
Gavin, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. And that's a glowing, you're building me up a little bit too much here. We'll see how it goes. But very excited to be on the podcast, super excited to be able to talk with you about my background, and even just what, from a different vantage point, I think the industry could benefit from, and really what it has given me as well, as somebody that wasn't raised in it. So
yeah. And just to be clear, you're in Rupert Landscape at the moment, which is obviously landscaping business, landscaping on a commercial level. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. So Rupert Landscape's a commercial only, really a landscape construction company, turnkey, one-stop shop for the entire exterior. And the two divisions are our new build, of which I cover all of the state of Virginia on the business development side, and then our maintenance side. So half of us build it, the other half maintains it. And I did have about a year and a half worth of time in the business development realm. And before that, I had time in project management for 2 years. So I've been with the company for going on 4 years in April.
Brilliant. And so I think the terminology is, well, in Europe anyway, it's hard landscaping and soft landscaping, I think, isn't it, in regards to the two different divisions?
Yeah.
Or what way, like, where are you based out of? Where's your locations out of at the moment?
Great question. Our office is, our corporate office is out in Laytonsville, Maryland, which is above the capital here, Washington, D.C. We have 41 branches nationwide. About 11 or 12 of those are landscape construction. So the new build, which again, really everything from the front door to the parking lot will get hired by owners, general contractors to build it. And then our maintenance branches, about 30 of them, everywhere from Pennsylvania through Florida, and then as far west as Texas. So our main kind of body of work is on the East Coast, the Mid-Atlantic area, and then kind of southeast United States.
And looking at the name, is that a family-run business or family legacy business, or is it a PLC now, or what way is the scale?
Yeah. So Craig Rupert is our founder, and he is still with the company now. He operates out of our corporate office there in Maryland. And just about a year and a half ago, we had a private equity firm that stepped in that we've been a great partner with. And before that, it was only family owned, and we still have but they have a majority stake in the company now, and we have been taking their insights from the financial side even more so, and continuing to grow. So it's a very aggressive growth plan for the company. They want to triple in their revenue and impact, and already we're a top 3, top 4 landscape construction company in the country. And so it's going to be really exciting to see that. And so I came in at a great time, and it's exciting to see what the company will continue to do moving forward.
Yeah, and so you get to see both sides of the fence, pardon the pun. I had to
Absolutely.
get that one in, I'm sorry.
I'm sure there will be more of them. I'm looking forward to it. I might drop a couple myself. I hit 13 and I went straight to dad jokes and never looked back. So I'm ready for the puns.
But you personally, so it's for me. This story is a personal story, and that's a fantastic business, and obviously the future looks very bright for all the workers and obviously all the locations, and that's a really powerful sort of if that marriage is right. I believe it's a it can be super for everybody. If obviously if the marriage isn't a perfect fit, then you have your challenges because it becomes a spreadsheet rather than
Yeah.
an actual we're doing it together for the right reason. But for you personally, so just let's roll back then. Obviously, construction wasn't your first profession. So where did you um, cut your teeth?
Yeah. So my background, as you said, Gavin, does not come from education, does not come from construction. That is, it came from education. I studied to be, I come from a family of educators. My dad and my sister both taught. And I I studied history in my undergrad, and then I got my master's in teaching. And I taught for 5 years at the secondary level, at the high school level here, and in the United States. Almost moved across the world to Indonesia, actually, because I wanted to spread my wings, and I decided to take a step back. And part of that was because the pandemic took place. And when that happened, I taught the rest of the 2020 school year online. Those last 3, 4 months after March hit and kind of the world shut down, I was miserable. I lacked the real reasons that I got into education, which was to impact young people in a relational way, and then to educate them, right in front of them. And I wasn't able to do that. We were online. We had screens the entire time. And I sat down and reflected in the summer of 2020. I had an old teaching colleague. I taught 2 classrooms down from him. I taught history and psychology. He taught government, and he had left in February of 2020. So he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, how's education?" I was like, "It's a dumpster fire like everything else. What do you got?" And he's like, I'm a part of this landscape construction company. Why don't you come and shadow me for a day or two and see what you think about it?" And I was like, "Okay." And so I go out to the job site, and this is a story I like telling because it's a pretty insane introduction into the industry. We're on site. We're doing our morning huddle, and there's a laborer who's belligerent on the site. He gets thrown off. The guy's girlfriend tries to come onto the active job site to fight the project
Oh,
manager.
come
It's a
on.
joint venture. Superintendents are like literally poking people in the chest, trying to pick fights with them. There was a safety issue where something fell off of like a third story and almost hit someone. All this has happened before like 9:30, 10 a.m. And I am just like, what am I getting into here? And I go into the office and people are using all these technical terms and they're yelling about change orders. I'm like, what are change orders? And then suddenly, we're getting a little bit towards the later portion of the day and someone's like, "Hey, it's been a tough Wednesday," and they crack open a light beer for me, and I'm just like, what is this? This is just a little bit different than me rounding up a bunch of 15-year-olds. Although we sometimes act like that on the job site, I realize more and more now. But like I said, I sat down and reflected on that experience, and I believed that education wasn't going anywhere. We didn't know what it was going to look like that following year. But I believed the skill set that I could learn in a completely new industry would be more valuable for me than teaching a year online. And so I jumped in as an assistant project manager, became a project manager in about a year of that. And then in a year's worth of time as a project manager, I stepped into the business development role. I think they saw that I had an ability and a skill set on that educational relational side, and then knew the industry from an actual building standpoint being that project manager. And they're like, all right, you know what we do, and you have the ability to sell it. And so I kind of jumped into that role and went headfirst into that, and have really found a great spot there personally that marries that educational background, because I am in a position now that not only is building relationships, but is educating people of what we do, how we do it, and why our company is valuable as a partner on the job site.
It's very, very, very smart from your leadership that they would throw you into the trenches first, and you probably didn't feel that you were being observed, but you were being observed.
Yeah.
You were being observed, and you were being
Well, I drank
watched.
water through a fire hose. Absolutely.
Yeah, like that's very smart. Like, I don't know whether that was by design or by luck. But when you think about it, you know, let's throw him in there and see can he swim first and see how he operates within the people. And you obviously are a connector of people, because, you know, the one thing about the construction sites is that I found the guys don't be long about finding out who you are and what you're about.
Absolutely. They're always watching.
Who's the newbie, and is he going to last? And then, you know, who's taking bets?
I had one of our superintendents say that exact thing. He was like, Chris, when you were in year 2 of being of managing all those jobs, and he was like, I didn't know if you were going to make it. And he was one of our superintendents on one of the jobs I was working with him alongside, and I was managing it from the office. And he was like, I didn't know if you were going to make it, but I'm glad you did. And it's true. They're always watching, and it takes a village.
They can smell fear. They can smell weakness. They can.
You're bringing up trauma from previous conversations of that former role. No, it was very good. It was important.
No, but they don't do it. There's no malicious malice intent on it. But you know, I think people are very quick to make up you know, their own mind whether someone can cut it or not, because it's such a fast and dynamic business. You kind of have to have your whereabouts about you to say to yourself, well, look, if I'm going to, you know, put a hard shift in here, I want to know that this guy can do it as well. And I think that's where it comes from my experience, rather than that they're trying to judge you in a way that is not how would you say, you know, it's not helpful, or it's not come from the right place. They actually do come from the right place, but I think they're just sort of sizing you up. And there's no better place than a construction site to figure you out within the first day. How many stories has there been about people just lasting maybe even the morning, and then by the afternoon they're gone? Like, but that didn't happen to you. So what was your big takeaways from the project management role? Because I'd love to know from somebody that was completely, let's call it green. Yeah. So what were your big takeaways in terms of the role of a project manager, and what they need to, you know, what skill sets they really should have in order to be successful?
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying, Gavin, I think it's true. This industry, not just the leaders, but even from at every level, people are kind of testing to see, you know, do you know your stuff? Do you have kind of the capacity? Do you even have the humility to ask questions? Because you don't know what you're doing. Because there are some people that try to do the opposite, where they feel like they have everything under control, and then it all just blows up because they tried to take on too much. And so I think you're right. This is an industry that constantly will test your worth and your knowledge base, and there needs to be a balance of personality traits and characteristics that help you be successful in those capacities. What the project management side taught me, outside of just the technical side of what Rupert did as a company, which made me effective in my role now, because I'm able to, when we're evaluating an opportunity now, I have the background where I've looked at drawings for 2 years. And granted, my knowledge from the project management side is a drop in the bucket compared to the legacy workers in this industry. I think that for me, it taught me a couple of things. As an educator, I had the freedom to be able to communicate how I so saw fit. And in the construction industry, your authenticity is weighed by how concisely and accurately you can articulate what an issue is and then what you're doing about it. Education is not necessarily the same way, where I have the time to, I'm teaching courses to students and I have the ability to be able to dialogue with them and explain the thought process. And that was naturally how I entered into this industry. It wasn't just, this is what I'm doing, but this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is the background to that. So I would naturally do that at first. And I realized that not only is that not what my direct manager needs, but that's certainly not what a client needed as well. It's really, what's the issue? What are you doing about it? And if they want to ask more questions, be prepared to answer. So I really think that one of the big things was that it has refined the communication skill set that I had, and realizing that also needs to change depending on the individual you're talking to. The way that you communicate with a site superintendent for a general contractor will be different than the way you communicate with an owner rep, will be different than the way you communicate with your own personal a day laborer or someone of that nature. And I think that now I had some of that
important. I think that's sorry to cut across you. I think that's so important. That's a massive point that I think there's not much discussion about. I think let's go there. Like that's very powerful. Like different conversations for different maturity levels within the construction industry, or different skill sets, or different roles, has different language.
Yeah. And I think I'm still learning that because, again, I was raised and my initial industry and work kind of experience was in an industry that could take a long story and make it longer, or take a short story and make it longer. And now I'm in an industry that, no, condense. And I constantly have the people that I directly report to that are just like, you need to fine tune that, tighten that up a little bit, or what did you mean when you said that? And it's really good. And so I think that was one. I think one of the other things that I really learned was frankly that, and it's something that I know we can talk more about. And I know that when you and I connected previously, before our conversation here, really the skill set of understanding that the industry more and more, in order to fulfill the needs of the workforce, there is a lot more hiring for an attitude as opposed to hiring directly for all of the satisfied technical skills.
100%.
I realized that, okay, I am coming into this industry with no knowledge of the background. I mean, I could not have told you the difference between a tree and the shrub, other than one's probably bigger than the other. I could not have told you the difference between, anything of concrete or asphalt, or how long it takes benches to come from Portugal, or anything that, I knew zero. I was absolutely a dunce in this industry coming in, and I had to accept that. And I think that, there's a quote I really like that I had a mentor of mine share, and he said, if pride is the cardinal sin, humility is the cardinal virtue. And I think I realized that if I'm going to be successful in this industry, I need to be relentless about asking questions, relentless about saying that I don't know something, and relentless then about learning what it is that I need to learn. Because you can say I don't know for 3 years, and then someone's like, what have you done for the last 3 years? But it's, can you take the things that you're being educated in and retain that knowledge and continue to fine tune your process? So I realized that I need to have an attitude and a posture that is of a learner's mindset as opposed to anything else. And that has allowed me to have 2 promotions and 3 separate roles in this industry and become someone who is looked at more as an influencer as opposed to somebody who's solely just been influenced as I'm learning things, which I think those are 2 big things.
Yeah, like the sponge comes to mind, that you're just there absorbing, absorbing. And I found the construction industry can be very welcoming of people, obviously, that are humble. And they give them a pass and they go, you know, okay, he's vulnerable. He's saying that he doesn't know and he's going to find out the answer. I don't have time to find out the answer. He's going to go and find out the answer. Let me crack on and dig up this pathway for the concrete that's arriving at 10 o'clock or whatever else that is.
Yep.
And they're happy once they know that you've expressed the fact that, like, I don't know how many cubic meters you need of this. Like, you're gonna have to educate me. Like, and
Yeah.
that's good because at least he knows you know now. But if you have to come back and ask him 6 weeks later, how many cubic meters was that again? He's gonna rip you.
Absolutely. It's dual fold. It's not just let me ask the question. It's let me learn the answer and retain that answer. The superintendent you talked about earlier, that's like, I don't know if he's going to make it. We all know those guys on the job site. It's the 55, 60-year-old grizzled, gnarled guy it seemed like he came out the womb with a shovel and a hammer in his hand. And being able to, there's no better way to often get that individual to let their guard down than to, because those guys are not the ones that are naturally wearing their heart on their sleeve, but there's no better way to brighten up those guys than to say to them, hey, I want to learn the knowledge that you have. Please teach me, in whatever fashion that ends up being. And man, the wisdom that comes from that. I mean, we talked a little bit about this workforce. I mean, we have 2024 alone, there's 500,000 construction roles that will need to be filled in the United States alone. By 2030, over a third of the industry will be retired, and we have no real legitimate plan to replace these people. And I'm a living proof of hire for the attitude, teach the technical skills. And I wouldn't even say I had the perfect attitude. That has been something that has grown even as I've come into the industry, because there are great examples of learners inside this industry as well. I think I naturally had more of that coming from that educational background. And the person who brought me in is who also was a teacher. He is actually now the person I directly report to. And we brought in another teacher background as well. So there's 3 of us in that office that have that mentality, which I think really speaks to the culture that gets created of one that people are hungry to learn, hungry to ask questions, and are hungry to grow.
Do you think that is probably a curveball again? If you listen to the show enough, I'm always throwing the odd one out here and there. Teachers can be, how would you say?
Just give me the offensive word, Gavin. You can say
trying to think
not.
I'm actually. There's a couple of offensive words actually here too. There's not just one offensive word, but like,
it's okay.
Number one, they tend not to be vulnerable because they can't be seen to be vulnerable in the classroom. They have to have this sort of persona that,
have it all
I'm
together
here as a figurehead that you can look up to and maybe be nearly this role model type. And I know that might be something of the past, that it's not as, it's more, there's more connection, I think, in the classroom, or they try to have more connection in the classroom in today's environment. But is there, like, did you feel that you had to change that sort of, that sort of front, if you like, from being a teacher to sort of coming into an open environment like construction, where you're not the one that has all the answers?
Yeah, I think I agree with you in that I think it's with every industry. There are some people that always try to put on the front that they have it all together. And then there are others that are willing to say that, that special, that 3-word phrase, I don't know, which is so valuable. and speaks a lot to somebody's character, regardless of the position that they're in. I think for me, the way that I approached my classroom, because again, I was in there for 5 years, so I wasn't a 25-year educator before making this career transition. I still was continuing to grow as a teacher. And I think the position that I already settled with my students, or the precedent I set, was I'm probably not going to know every answer we have here. And I would tell them that. But if I don't know something, I will communicate that, and then I will come back to you the next time we have class, and you will hear more of an answer from me. And that happened many times. And I would have to write it down. I have a student ask a question right there, and it's intimidating. You've got 30 individuals that are staring at you, expecting you to have all the answers. It's like, oh, you studied history. Don't you know everything that happened in the world? It's like, well, probably not. I need a little more time.
Let me put that to you. Let me put that question to you in a different way. Do you think that there's a period of time that maybe we would not be able to extract this great talent out of the education system into the construction industry? Because is there a point where, you said kind of year 4, year 5, you were in the teaching, like, maybe if you got somebody that was 10 years teaching, that you can't really, that they're institutionalized at that stage?
I see. No, that's a great question. I think I spoke about the three, I don't know, the three educators that are now all in our direct office that I work in now, myself included. I taught for 5 years before making the transition. The individual who left and brought me in was a 10 to 11-year educator and came in. And then the other individual that recently came in was probably around 15 to 18 years of an educator.
Wow.
So I don't necessarily think it is, to use your word, it's institutionalized. And I think that because specifically, and I don't know how necessarily this is in your on the other side of the pond there, but educators have been leaving the teaching the industry in droves, and this is an industry that continuously tries to fight for top talent, and more so they're realizing that I'm not going to hire a project manager that has 15 years of experience just like that. There's not a huge plethora of those people. Now, that doesn't mean that, you take somebody that has no experience and immediately put them managing, a $30 million job. You have to build that up. But there is, by building that, by having that attitude that is hungry to learn, which can come at every age level, regardless of how long you've been in the industry or whatever your prior industry was. You can find that. So I don't think that it's a death sentence if you've been there for a longer period of time.
Great to hear. That's really good. That's even better outcome than what I thought. I thought there might be a period of time where you can't really change attitudes and use that to your advantage.
You've been in the prison for too long, and you can't get out.
To put it in another way, and I don't want to know, or the listeners don't want to know your personal circumstances, but is there economics here that makes sense that, you'd say to yourself, well, I would never have the capacity to earn that type of money if I had stayed where I was? Or is there an economic is the upward trend of salaries and conditions more favorable in construction than they were in teaching?
I think you do know the answer to that question, because that's probably one of the biggest talking points when you think about the industry of education as a whole. Don't get me wrong, I miss having summers off. That's a great thing, getting 2 or 3 months off right there, and the holidays, whereas in construction, certainly I've got maybe a handful of days that are actually days I'm not on the site. But I think the transitioning into a merit-based industry was radically different. And that was one of the things that even has been disenfranchising for some of the teachers, is that for me, let's say, I was a 3-4 year teacher putting in 12 plus hour days, even in a school system, developing lesson plans, interacting with students, fine-tuning my craft. You have somebody that's been there maybe for 10 years that is literally the stereotypical, teacher that's opening up a textbook and reading directly from that, and the kids are all sleeping. It's the Ferris Bueller type of teacher, and that's just calling out that stuff. And I think that for somebody that has ambition and fire, that puts out that flame very quickly. And so I think coming into an industry that when they see somebody that is digging in, they can put their money where their mouth is and say, all right, you'll get the promotion, you'll get that bonus, you'll get the next opportunity. That is a extremely encouraging and reinforcing agent that people that come from an industry that doesn't rely on that and is based solely on years of service, they don't get that. So I was grateful.
Well said. Very well said. And if anyone was listening to this that's a teacher, will go, okay, that's it, I'm changing career. So you sold that well. We've had a good few people on the podcast, obviously, that it's funny enough, they say that they try to get back into the schools to try and to create a better awareness within the school system to show people that the construction industry is actually a great industry to get involved in. And maybe there's a global feeling that we don't do enough to promote construction, and we're losing careers because of that, because people are being stereotyped into, oh well, if you get into software, or you're an engineer or something like that, you're going to have a better career. So that was another very interesting point that when we connected was that here's a teacher that can go back into the school system and can actually, talk the language of the school system and sort of re-educate people to sort of have a look at, not saying go straight into construction, but you can talk with authority now to go back into the schools and sort of say, hey, look at me, I was in this system. The system really rewarded me, but it also gave me the tool set to come out of this and to move into. So don't be pigeonholed into one career. You can always change, and construction is open. It's an open barrier system to a point, more so than any other profession. Is there anything that you've done in the schools since you've left?
Yeah. So I'm grateful. So I'll answer that question in two ways. One of them semi-related and one of them kind of more directly related, but I think they're both important for the question you asked. I think on one hand, I've become very active in certain committees, construction committees around the local area that are actively trying to be a part of educating the construction industry more in the variety of skill sets using, and one of the presidents of one of those industries, when he found out I was a former teacher, came and grabbed me on my shoulders. He's like, we need to get you in our education management committee. And I got brought into that because of the fact that I look at teaching and training very differently than somebody who came purely from a construction background. And that does not mean that there are not great educators in this industry. There are, and there are wealths of knowledge, but teaching is a skill set, and the ability to consolidate and bring effective information that is applicable and practical, that takes time. And like I said, I wouldn't say even I was the master educator yet in 5+ years of the industry, but I learned a lot and I studied it extensively. And so I think that is one way in which I'm trying to help educate the industry as a whole and be a part of that process, because I think that will continue as more non-traditional people enter into the industry. There will be a greater need to help build the skill sets effective as quickly as possible for them to be effective in the industry, to fulfill the roles that will continue to empty in large capacities because of retirements. Even just that alone. And to get more directly, so that's my kind of side answer, but my direct answer to that question would be that I'm hoping to start to get more into the school systems to be able to share, hey, I did a traditional path that has been reinforced for probably about the last 15 years in the education industry, which has, if you want to be effective, 15 to 20 years, I'd say, you need to, you finish high school, you finish secondary school, you go to university and you study, and then you get your job. And, I still remember my father as I was in college trying to figure out what my major was going to be, because I've always been a jack of all trades, master of none, which I realize is more and more a cliche phrase now because everyone's a generalist in some capacity.
Yes.
But he said, hey, this doesn't need to be your only step. You don't need to make your career teaching in suburban America for the rest of your life. But this is your first step towards what you want to do in your professional working life. And I became, living proof of that. Now, COVID provided a great direction for that. So I think that what I want to be able to do is go into those school systems and being able to speak on, hey, I did the normal path and it was great. And I was effective and influential. And I'll be meeting some of my former students in the next couple of weeks here. I mean, I created the impact I wanted to, but I also realized that there's a whole new other world out there, and construction offered that to me. And so I want the kids to know that, you're not a failure or or lesser than as a result of taking a path that may be what is different than, the wave of information that they're giving now, which is, hey, you need to follow this path only. I still remember one of my students, I think it was my first or second year teaching, who was a junior in high school, and he still had one more year. Brilliant, brilliant student. And I was like, what are you going to do after you graduate? And he's like, I'm going to go into welding. And and my mom's side of the family is from a welding background. And so I've always had a great respect for it. But I remember being like, man, if I was that kid is going to be a master welder in the next 10 years, not even out of his 20s yet, probably making six figures with zero debt, and have have the world open to him, as opposed to coming out of education, out of university, that is, with, on average right now, it's about $50,000 worth of debt. About $40,000 to $50,000 US dollars of debt. And that's not, people are realizing that more and more as TikTok and other social media platforms become more prominent. The world does open up for you.
Well, first of all, if I knew you were coming to my school, I think I'd put the chains on the gates, because I'd be afraid you'd take all my teachers into the construction industry. So,
who knows? I might go in trying to talk to students and end up pulling out more teachers out of the school than the kids. So
why is he talking? Why is he in the staff room? What's he doing in the staff room? He's having a meeting. He's getting them all signed up to construction to Rupert Landscapes.
Oh my goodness! No, you got my wheels turning now. It's not just for the kids; it's for everyone.
It's not just for the kids.
It's true. Yeah.
But I like the major thing here is we don't talk enough about construction leaders need to be really good coaches, and we don't need to be a leader in order to be a coach either. You can be anybody, but the fact that you have this teaching skill set gives you that platform, that you have a disciplined approach towards coaching people and to connecting with people, and to be able to read the room. I'm not putting words in your head or in your mouth, but this is where my fascination was with your skill set, and obviously your company has a blueprint. Let's talk about more about you yourself. So what's your sort of goals now as personal goals for the future? Like, I see you're very strong on LinkedIn, and you've got this sort of, you've nearly got your own brand because of everything that you've done within your career so far. And it looks like the future is bright for you. So where do you see yourself, in the next 5 years anyway?
Yeah, I believe that I do see the direct path continuing to be in the construction industry. So I don't plan on running out like I did in education. So no, I didn't run out. It was but I think I think for me, I do see the skill set that I have in the ability to teach and the way in which I approach not just construction, but relationship building and educating others on what we do in the business development side. That psychology background, which I taught. I taught a kind of a collegiate psychology 101 class at the secondary level, which gave me a great background for even how we interact with people. Again, it was more from an academic side, but once I started getting into not just the construction industry and project management, but also this business development side, I started applying a lot of the things that I taught from an academic side. And I was like, oh, wow, this stuff actually works. The way in which to understand personalities, understand even something as simple as remembering names and being an active listener, and a lot of these kind of what we call soft skills, which get talked about and are continuing. It seems like there's more and more of a wave of people within the construction industry that are helping teach others either how to do these things, how to build authentic relationships, how to educate others. Because some people might be really good at it, but they're not good at teaching it. And then there might be others that are just not good at it. Period. You have the construction, the kids coming through construction, maybe from a university level or from a shop, kind of a trade school level, that are Gen Z that maybe did not, frankly, have as much social interaction as we did in our adult lives, and they are not confident in a networking environment, understanding how to engage in conversation. And then you may have people that have been legacy individuals in the industry, but they are not, they're not able to either, they don't have the skill set to teach others what they do and how they've done it, or they're stagnant in what they do. And the industry continues to grow and change. So getting back to your actual question, I think what I see myself, a role that I see myself in currently, I am very active on LinkedIn and I'm building out this brand and business, is to really help educate people to really be better teachers and networkers, both in person and online. And I think that leans well into my business development role currently. But I think I've become more and more passionate about even just the brand building and storytelling. The construction industry is chock full of stories. I mean, talk to that superintendent on the site and about what he's seen in his life of the work. And he will, I mean, there are stories that'll make you laugh and make you cry. The owner of a subcontractor business or a general contractor VP, and talking about their stories. I think that this is the construction industry is will always be here and continue to grow and change. But I think that how we tell the stories, in particular, with social media, with this whole idea of, oh, let me have an individual brand that represents me, represents my company, represents what I'm trying to build. That's something that I am really learning how to build myself and help with others in this industry, because it's not everyone understands how to share that in a way that resonates, but also really builds more business. I think it's the best way to warm recruiting, is being able to talk about that. I've had two friends that have come into my current company as a result of just the fact that I'm posting on social media about what I'm learning, what I'm doing, mistakes that I've made, which is really important. It's not just the good, but it's the bad and the ugly as well. So that's what I'm trying to build personally, while I continue to learn and grow, and in this crazy, insane industry of 15-year-olds. Not actually, though. But
let me ask you a question, though, Chris, and I think the viewers and the listeners will really be interested in this. Do you see an opportunity to help the construction industry in terms of how we onboard staff into the construction business and how we nurture that staff in such a way that you can bring a sort of curriculum of its own? Because, all right, there's always the mandatory training and the sort of the toolbox talks and gangbox talks and stuff like that. that we
Yeah.
have, which is kind of awareness, education, you know, but it does get stale because it's kind of like, well, we'll have to do it because it's part of the, process that you have to have that ticket for that particular whatever. But I'm more interested in the growth of the worker in terms of the question I'm asking you, and how can we grow that person into a better version of themselves so that they can maybe give back then later on once they've come through this sort of Chris Guerra model of, you know, how to be a top construction worker. Is there anything there that you've learned, or have you got things in the back of your head, blueprints that maybe could be adapted for the construction industry as a whole?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think I have lots of thoughts because of, I helped build curriculum from a teaching standpoint. And so certainly understanding the systems to onboard and educate folks of the technical side of a company or the culture of a company, I think that is another area that I personally want to step into, but then also that is continues to need to grow because for Gavin, I'm sure yourself, and this was actually even true for me only, a little less than 4 years ago, most of the ways, and Rupert is a large company, but we hadn't even at that point yet kind of systematized how we bring in individuals into the company and educate them. And it was more reliant on a couple of the very good mentors and speakers within the company. And then the rest of it was, we're throwing you in the deep end. And there I was, a year and a half in to this industry, managing 5 jobs worth, however many $1 million, and wondering, what am I doing? And it was, I think that, and I had support systems that were really valuable, and I wasn't completely on my own, but I was burnt out as a result of kind of what was being required and what was needed, and then what I actually had from a competency standpoint. And all those jobs ended up being managed well, but that was a painful learning process.
Yeah.
I believe that my personal company has radically improved in that, even in the last year and a half, 2 years. But I think that a way in which, from a teacher's perspective, I think it's kind of 2 things. One is there's actually I'm going to kind of a shameless plug here for somebody that I really like. There's in the United States, specifically in Georgia, there's a minor league team called the Savannah Bananas, and it's an American baseball team, but they don't actually play the game of baseball the same exact way that a normal Major League Baseball game is played. There are a lot of other unique rules. It's almost like Barnum and Bailey, like the circus meets baseball. And it's a fascinating thing. And the company, the CEO of the company talked about how when he brings people on, they don't have it's not onboarding. They call it coaching. And it's simple as that, because, and his whole idea was that we're dealing with adults here. We're going to treat people like adults, and we're going to hold them accountable, but also we're going to invest in them in a way that we believe what they offer is valuable. And then we help fine tune what they bring. So I think it's understanding, what are the skill sets of the individual? How can I levy those effectively? And then how can we, rather than it's kind of, because we've all had you're sitting down and you're watching the videos that were made in the 1990s of safety or of all that, and it is corny as anything. You tune out, you get the lullaby effect, and you stop listening. And so I think that a active coach is somebody that is there in the corner with you, that's actually not hand-holding, but really walking alongside you, modeling what needs to be done. It is, hey, you don't know how to give tough conversations yet when you're speaking with a client and you need to give them bad news. You're going to get on a call with me and I'm going to show you exactly what happens. It's hey, you don't understand how to build, you don't understand how to pour this concrete in the way that we need to effectively and have your aggregates correct and all that. We're going to walk through this together, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I think that we assume a little bit more than we assume, and I think so. That's 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 one of the big things I think.
Yeah, there's an over reliance on assuming that it's naturally going to happen rather than having a systematic, sustainable approach to building a community within the community of your business. Basically,
Yeah,
I think, no, no, I like, as I said, there's lots of stuff to take away here from the discussion with yourself, and I think it's brilliant that you're this beacon that can sort of put your hands up and say, "Look, what I've done." And I think there's not that many people that have probably been on the career progression that you and your colleagues have done at the moment. It's a credit to the company, it's a credit to yourselves to be brave enough to say, look, we're going to rip up the book, and it's not going to be all teachers, but the teachers is just one industry that we can say we've turned from the teaching industry to construction industry, and here's how it's worked, and here's how it's made a massive impact. And I'd be really interested to see your journey, and I'd love for you to come back on in the podcast in the future, if you wouldn't mind, just to give us some more. I'm sure there's more lessons learned to be done out of this. It sounds like it's a very organic growth path that your company and yourselves are on at the moment. So, I don't think you've completely figured everything out, because nobody really does, but I do think that you're onto something, and I think it's a credit to you and everybody else within the company.
yeah. No, I appreciate that, Gavin. And I realized I said two things. The second thing that I just wanted to quickly add, because I know we're getting towards the end of our time here, which has been grateful, and I'll have to talk more about it the next time I'm on. But I know the other thing was I think we do not teach people how to learn anymore. Once they get past a formal education, which doesn't even do a great job of that. That's the other thing. It's not just that. It's the modeling, and it's teaching people how to learn. And that's something that as an educator, I really reinforced. I realized that not all my students were going to become psychology professors or psychologists, or they were going to become history teachers or history professors. But I taught them, and I made it a goal to teach them how to learn and how to enjoy learning. And, if you're coming into a new industry, or if you're coming into a new trade, in construction, which you're constantly learning new things. You could be 30, 40 years in the industry and see a specification. You're like, I have never seen something that's going to be built like that in my life. And that will always happen. But, I think that if systems can be put in place in the onboarding process that help teach people how to learn more, and the mentality and the practical skills that they need, that is another way. So I know I'm derailing a little bit from our closure,
No,
but I
no.
think that's really important to have that as
Yeah.
well. Those are the two.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think we put together PowerPoint presentations in construction, and there's no real logic behind the learning outcome. Now, you could say we're getting too academic, but you don't have to be too academic if you have just a simple blueprint to put that stuff together. And I think, whoa, fair play to yourself and everybody else. I'm really happy that you joined us on the podcast today, Chris. And if someone wants to contact you, how would they get in touch with you? Because I know that you have your LinkedIn presence, but is there any other way to contact you, or is it just straight through LinkedIn?
I would say for right now, as everything I'm personally building out, to help, like I said, build better, help people build better relationships in the industry and be a better networker, both in person and online. Right now, LinkedIn's going to be the best platform. You can reach out to me and DM me through there. And I believe I've got some emails attached there, and I'll have the landing page set up by the time probably this goes through, that people will be able to find me even in more ways. So that'll be the best way for right now.
No, thank you very much. And you're open to sort of discovery calls, or people want to just, shoot the breeze and have something to ask you, like, you're open book. And I know you are open book, and it's a credit to you. And I'm sure that Thanksgiving family get together when you told your family you were going into construction was a pretty interesting time. So, you were brave. So well done. And we're delighted to have you on the podcast, Chris. We wish you the very best for the future, and also your company and your colleagues.
Gavin, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate what you are doing to continue to shine light on the industry and every single corner of it necessary. And even from the other side of the pond, we'll have to get a pint together here real soon. And looking forward to cracking a Guinness with you.
All right, take care, Chris. All the best now.
Absolutely. See ya.